So I saw the movie Civil War yesterday, and it was pretty good. One of the major flaws of the movie could also be seen as a feature that you didn't really pick sides. It didn't the movie didn't really pick sides as to who was right in the war. It didn't really describe what the war was over, but it did depict something like what a civil war could be like in America. And there's ways to piece together which side is which, stuff like that. But it's kind of a flaw in the movie that it's kind of both sides about stuff. And again, it's kind of a feature. It allows people to kind of look at things the way they look at them or identify with the sides they want to, if they even can. But it's so vague as to what they're fighting over. That's a little bit hard to do, which is good. It's also a feature in the movie because it points out the idea that war is wrong. Any war is wrong. War is bad for everybody. War should be something we all work together to stop. All sorts of good messages like that. The problem with the both sides message is the movie could be a lot more effective if it had just come right out and said, hey, look, this is what a second Trump coup would lead to. This is what a second Trump coup would look like. This is what might happen in 6 months. And Trump is the bad guy here. The good guy are the ones who are willing to overthrow him, etc. If it had come out like that, and it does imply that in many, many ways, but if it had come out like that, it would have been a more powerful movie. And it wouldn't have run the risk of both siding things and making it seem like, well, either of these could be okay. We could have an authoritarian regime in America, and that would be fine if they won. We can't necessarily all cheer on people who are willing to oppose that. A movie that did allow us all to cheer on opposing an authoritarian government in America would be good. But you could read it the other way because it's so vague, because the principles of what they're fighting over are never really laid out or discussed. It's a secession and it's a response to authoritarianism. That's something we could very likely actually see in America. So it might have been more helpful if it had just called the guy Trump, but it does allude to the president being Trump, etc. Such as, he doesn't look like Trump or anything, but when he first comes out and says, some are saying it's the biggest military victory in history, it's the way Trump talks. So even though I've heard that the director claims, this was written before January 6th, all of these issues and themes and, white supremacy, clans, and neo-Nazis that Trump represent have all been in America for a long time, and it makes sense to write the characters based on those and the sides based on those sides of America. You can also look at various characters, like the guy with the red glasses who's in such a memorable scene. The red glasses are somewhat symbolic of a red hat, like seeing the world through red Russian colored glasses, things like that, even though he's the one who's claiming to be so super American. He's obviously not very intelligent. The more intelligent, the better characters, the characters with dyed hair and fingernail polish, they never disclose directly that they're even, the opposing Western forces, but you can imply that from the way they dress. Well, I don't want to spoil the movie in the long run, but California and Texas being in the Western forces. That's disclosed pretty early in the movie. California and Texas being in the Western forces, you could go either way with that. You could say, well, these Western forces are politically one or the other, except California is not coming around to Texas's side of things. This is because Texas turns blue. Whatever. There's a lot of ways that you can read it to see, hey, these are the forces against Trump in the world and in the country. And there's some other references like that. The fact that the generals surrender. Generals and the army isn't going to surrender because the government's not being right-wing enough. The army's going to surrender because the government's being too right-wing. And there's no scenario in which the army would surrender under a president that is decent enough. If the president's too much of an authoritarian, yeah, the army might surrender and secessionist forces might win. Sorry if I've spoiled too much of this movie, but again, it would have been a better movie if it had just been directly against Trump, if it had just depicted what people want to see in America, the overthrow of Trumpism, the end of Trumpism, one way or another. And if Trump does successfully coup again in November and take power, this is the kind of response you might see instead of the Tiki Torch J6 response. It'd be a little bit more serious, it'd be a little bit more organized, it would be a whole lot more intelligent, and it would have right and justice on its side, as opposed to having evil and Putin on its side, as the J6 Trumpsurrectionist Trump-Putiners had. So I enjoyed the movie Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. better than this because it was just very explicit about killing Nazis. You kill the Nazis and you're cheering on the people who kill the Nazis. Not a hard movie to understand and follow. This wasn't hard to understand and follow either. Had some good cinematography, had a great message against war, but it could have even had a stronger message against Trump-Mutineers if it just said, hey, cheer for the people who are willing to stop the Trump-Mutineers by any means necessary because otherwise they're going to destroy the country and the planet, and it's time to take it seriously like that. So as I suspected about this movie when I was watching and reviewing Ungentlemanly Warfare, this is what Ungentlemanly Warfare is what we want Civil War to be. We want to show that nobody's going to give a damn about the end of Trump-Mutineers, of Trump and Trump-Mutineers, however it happens. And the longer they delay the beginning of justice in this regard, the worse it's going to be for them. It's a lot easier to clean up these terrorists before they take power again. So a good warning, go see Civil War. It's a good movie. It could be better, but again, the flaw is also the feature that you don't have to pick sides. You can just look at it and come to the conclusion, hey, war is wrong. We should stop all wars everywhere. And that's a really good, important message. We can do it with the pillow revolution. We can do it from bed. We can do it with love and on our phones, especially if they let us actually talk to each other on apps like TikTok. If we can, even if they cancel TikTok, if the people come to YouTube or other platforms and expect that type of interaction, we can overthrow the algorithms and allow actual interaction on these platforms instead of the gerrymandered stuff they have now to try to keep people from connecting and coordinating and making coalitions. Anyway, thanks for joining. You might also consider the Fairy Liberation Front, and Pillow Revolution has hashtags to use. Thanks for watching my review, and let's not have any war, but let's definitely not have a civil war. Let's just leave it to a simple mop up the terrorist Trumpers operation and stop these guys before it gets any worse than it already has been and as bad as it is in that movie. Thank you.